Greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm Hashim Bey here. Going to be going over a few things that's dealing with us as black people, Moors, Commissions, whatever you choose your nationality to be. Right now, we're not going into spirituality of things right now because we need to really deal with the system in a level to where we can free and do with them on an equal footing. And the only way we can do that is by studying and learning the Constitution, which I feel a lot of our brothers and sisters do not take, or do I feel that we take for granted. So what we're going to do is get into a brief education of how this Constitution is a tool that they have used to manipulate our brothers and sisters because of us not knowing on the equal footing that we're dealing with these so-called Europeans. So it's not to take anything to offense, but we'll get into the politics of self and what is the living Constitution, and we'll get into that by an introduction. What is the Constitution? The word Constitution is defined as the physical or mental makeup of a person. The Constitution most familiar to us is the U.S. United States Constitution, the framework of the American nation. So let us study the relationship between the physical and mental makeup of this Constitution. Now, as we study the relationship between the physical and mental makeup of our Constitution, the body, and governmental makeup of the United States Constitution, a study of our physical and mental makeup would inevitably lead us to the study of our mind and body. Consequently, we are saying there is definitely a connection between our physical Constitution body and the recorded U.S. Constitution. For example, as the vertebrate column lays the base for the physical framework of our body and has 26 bones, the U.S. Constitution lays the basis for the framework of the U.S. government and has evolved to include 26 amendments. Also, the U.S. Constitution helped to shape the genesis of the country and has developed gradually by a process of growth and change. Almost 200 years after its adoption, it is still studied the world over and is considered one of the oldest written constitutions. However, the oldest written constitution is the oldest living constitution, and that is the human body. So just think, you have one constitution, 26 amendments. You have one vertebrate column and 26 bones. So how can we trace the beginning or the genesis of this oldest living constitution? Let's see if we can find an answer in which lays the base of the framework of the body, the vertebrate column. Now, the etymological root of the word vertebrae can be traced to the word vertere, which is also the root of the word verse. Now, remember, we are trying to trace the genesis of the oldest living constitution. Therefore, in looking at the first book of the Bible, Genesis, and using the framework of the body, the 26 bones, we discover that Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, in the King James Version, tells us of God making a man. We find God saying, "Let us make man in our image and after our likeness." Now, with this scripture in mind, we can see God making up a man, and we are saying that this law of making up man is the root of the Constitution we now use. In essence, we are no longer being made up by the mind of God's law, but by the minds of men who equate their concept as law. Now, surely this statement deserves proof, so let us go to the evidence. At the inception of the U.S. Constitution, the black man and woman were slaves. The social, physical, and mental reality given to them by their slave masters was based on the concept of men. Now, during the drafting of the U.S. Constitution, many of these concepts were embedded and woven into it. For example, during the initial drafting process, northern and southern delegates differed in their views on how the slaves would be counted for taxation and representation. Southern delegates wanted the slaves to be counted when determining the state's representation, but not when determining taxation. So conversely, the northern delegates wanted the slaves to be counted when determining direct capture, but not when determining representation. Therefore, they reached a compromise based on conceptual and not law, or based on concept and not law. Excuse me. Now, the compromise came to be known as the Three-Fifths, and the Three-Fifths Compromise because it stated that three-fifths of the state's total slave population would be counted for both purposes, taxation and representation. In essence, the framers of the Constitution were saying that if there were 100,000 slaves living in a state, only 60,000 of them would be counted. For the free persons in the United States, one person counted as one person. However, this was not true for slaves. If it were true, then 100,000 slaves would have counted as 100,000 slaves, and this means that each slave was mathematically assessed as a fraction or three-fifths of a person, or instead of a whole person. An example would be 1,000 slaves times one whole person equal 100,000 slaves. 100,000 slaves times three-fifths fraction of a person meant or equals 60,000 slaves. So this example clearly shows the concepts the founding fathers superimposed over God's principal law. They had conceptual desires that they wanted to see fulfilled, especially when it came to question of slaves, taxation, and representation. In their minds, the black slaves did not have the free rights of a whole person. So thus the Three-Fifths Compromise conceptually made up three-fifths of a person to fit the desires of the framers of the Constitution. So conversely, when God made man, he made him whole and gave him dominion, which is defined as rule or power to rule. So freedom. Today, the same process of making up men and women for desired control is being used through our educational system. Through our educational system, we have been taught dominantly right-sided action, which corresponds to left brain dominance. This condition of left brain dominance has produced the modern version of a three-fifth person, because only the left brain, the right hand, and the right foot are stimulated, while the left hand and left foot are lifeless. In this state, only three-fifths of the person is functional. See a chart which I will have for you in upcoming lectures. So we'll deal with our education. Our educational system has definitely helped to shape our views of ourselves, but it has never really taught us the true politics of self. In the politics of self, the totality of our human function must be developed in order to have a lawful, principled external system. The politics of our external system is composed of thought process, past, present, and future. These phases in time gradually evolve to form new thinking patterns of political issues which eventually become laws. It is through our laws that we shape and form our physical reality. Case point 1. Now, during the early 1900s, alcohol was a political issue. It was such an explosive political issue. How much time? 8 minutes I got? No? All right. 1 minute? All right. We'll have to continue this on to part 2, so please stay tuned, and I hope you enjoyed this first part, and I hope it was very informative for you. God bless most of you.